positions of privilege is to allow room for those who are marginalized to speak.
Jadoo Mantar, Jadoo Mantar, Jadoo Mantar. You are going into the future.
You talking to me?
They always be these closing.
The
Queen is dead.
Oh God, I'm like holding myself back because tomorrow I'm going to go so off on that film. My God.
I mean, I can understand. It's a train
travesty.
wreck, so yeah.
It's a travesty. It's not a train.
I didn't hate it as much as you did, but I totally I thought it was pretty
Like
bad.
if it wasn't that transphobic, I would still be like a bit empathetic to it. But I'm like, you literally didn't do any bloody research, and it's so annoying.
I had there's a number set in a Bangkok hospital where I was just like, oh my God, what is this? Like, I'm like, that's something
I
else.
saw
I don't want to spoil it for him.
So he was tweeting yesterday that
You haven't seen Emilia Perez yet?
No,
I'm just
I
saying,
won't spoil anything, but
be prepared for as baffling decisions as possible. I mean, yeah, I think this is actually on par with Megalopolis as being just baffling on some levels.
I disagree. Megalopolis is
You
good,
enjoyed
actually.
Megalopolis.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
In what?
I
On
love
a
Megalopolis.
on a camp level, I guess, right?
Yeah, and also it's that kind of pretentious nonsense that a philosophy student loves.
Sure.
The whole like luxuriating on the state of
You watched it in the hall, no,
It's
Hemant?
like,
I watched it all. Yeah, I know.
I think that would make a big
I really
difference.
enjoyed it.
Dude, after the thing, everyone was like silent. No one left the theater. We just looked at each other. We're like, dude, what? Like that was something.
The most shocked I am is that Amartya liked it. Amartya generally doesn't like
No,
these
I'm not
auto.
surprised at all.
I
that
too think I'm
Amartya
quite
liked it.
surprised. I think he doesn't care for these auteurist sort of grandstanding, projects, but he lapped it. I was like, okay. I mean, I hate whenever anyone talks in that movie. I'm just like, just shut up. But anyways, I think that movie
But
works
for me,
best
it
as a
was-
silent
yeah.
movie. Anyways.
No, it was an almost anti-Fountainhead, which I like. It
no
was
idea what to
weirdly like again,
what a
someone
comparison.
who-
Yeah, very.
No, it like almost directly invokes Rand. Like might as well have like a this, and it buys into a lot of her ethos, but then also is deeply emotional, which is like anti-Rand. So I'm like, it wants
Does
to
it
traffic
buy
in
the
Rand's
emotionality
lane, but
though?
also
I don't
be
think
there.
that emotionality came across to me at least.
I mean, in theory, I'm not saying in practice. I'm saying
not
even
in,
the fact that
not
he
in
is
the tone of the movie,
inspired.
maybe just what he's saying. Yeah, just
Yes.
script.
He's what he's saying. Like the idea that he is inspired by his love for his partner
Dead
and
wife.
wife.
Yeah.
That is like the completely opposite of what Rand is. The pure rationalist. Emotions are for weak people. That kind of objective. It's a wild ass philosophy and it's a wild ass book
Sure.
and movie. But
I actually have only read Fountain. I've not read anything by Anora.
I've also only read Fountain.
I have not read anything.
I hate
so anyways,
Okay.
you guys can
But
fill me
I-
in.
It took me 2
always-
years to
I-
get through. It was miserable.
I hated myself for reading it. By the way, like it's such a it's the
Oh,
most.
my mom loves that book to bits. So I'm just like,
That's
yeah, I'm the one of the hot take in my family.
yeah. I mean, honestly, why do people like that book? Like, also maybe okay. And your comparison for that movie was actually a little bit on in the end when they actually do the whole like talk about the society and how our future generations are
Another monologue.
Yeah, This is more like like Plutarch that like there is that like that like a sermon you give
Yeah.
yeah when there is a change in government. Like my wife got me into this. I have no background of why this use, what the significance is, but it's like there is a certain of it's like there is a death of certain way of thinking, and this is the way of thinking, and that's what he wanted to like push across again and again.
But
Whatever
there
that
is a
Megalopolis looks
humanism.
like a pile of shit also. Whatever like that
I thought it would look really cool because again,
Okay.
I love
Fine.
You like airport car, that walkways. You do you like those? Do you like being
What
pushed along?
happened?
You find me cruel, selfish, and unfeeling? I am. I work without caring what happens to either of us. So go back to the club, bear it all, and stock the kind of people that you enjoy.
Fine. I will.
No. I spent a good month researching architecture for a project for one of my courses. So I was just from like, the Art Deco style that they go for the bordering on like neoclassical to the sort of, what is the other one? The Renaissance, that kind of that neoclassical particular, that vibe. So I was just like, this is the kind of aestheticism I just exposed myself to so much in the last month. And I'm like, I get to nerd out aestheticism.
I would also say that the film barely shows it in a way which is unsatisfying. It's not like it, you know what it reminded me of? I don't know, very Love Story 2050.
Oh my God! I was actually thinking 2049 as well. What do you like?
Are you crazy? Not Blade Runner 2049. I love that movie. But anyways, Love Story 2050 has that, very uncanny, almost cheap plastic look to it, which I think the whole film has. And it works. Like if the film was cynical, I think that look would also work. But it's very, very sincere in its optimism and all that. And I'm just like...
I mean, honestly, I'm all for sincerity. It's the issue is that when you have a tonal shift, like how you do with how Coppola does it, and it was a very I don't know, he talks about the movie, but the issue is that I nowadays I'm actually very much averse from listening to other than what your references are. I actually don't care about anything what your intent is. More than anything, I actually liked when Coppola. There was a phrase he says in one of podcasts and all. There's one podcast of Josh Hurwitz,
Yeah, I think he was defending the film on the performances he was defending, right? Which I agree. I don't mind my favorite performance was Aubrey Plaza's because she was vampire.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No, for me it's that go back to the
Go back to the
the club. Yeah. I mean, I like Shia LaBeouf a lot. This is one of those few movies where I like him. Yeah.
Both of them are doing a camp sort of rendition, I feel. But
I just don't get Shia LaBeouf. Sorry, cannot.
But Adam Driver, I thought was not good. I generally like Adam Driver.
I loved Adam Driver.
I didn't think he was good.
I think he was badly cast. Yeah. I feel like someone else should have been cast as the main role.
John Voight was... I was like, what? There were scenes where I was like, what are you doing? This was almost fascinating on how bad is this level. But anyway.
No, again, why I like it on a camp level.
Yeah.
It's just such a bloody campy film.
I mean, I think Aubrey Plaza really works well in this kind of framework where you feel like it's comedy, but you kind of get uneasy by how serious they're being. Yeah. I like how, I mean, I don't know about Shia LaBeouf as a person or whatever, but his roles usually are very loud. Yeah. And it's actually subdued for him, where he is, where he has been cast as what he always wanted to be cast as. He's
a lecherous nobody,
I mean, he wanted to be more he was a commentary on he was of course the commentary on right-wing extremism, right?
Yeah, with that swastika and all of those.
Yeah, and more than that, it was just how he's rich and privileged and he's using that weakness in society against it, and which was okay, that's a great day for doing it, but it's a part of the story. It's not the whole point of the story. It's where you have a song and you have a 6-minute song where it's a build up to something and then it goes into something else. It's that. It's where you you want. I mean, I am comparing. I don't know why I'm comparing. I don't know, XX or FKJ or whatever. There's not an ambient track movie. This is more we are declaring this Bohemian Rhapsody of a movie. And that's the reason why it was very jarring for me, the tone. And I think
I think that is jarring. I think even people who like it, I think that jarring tone of it, I guess, right?
Yeah. If
I'm
you're,
guessing.
if it was
Yeah.
self-aware of it, I felt that they were self-aware of the tonal shifts and
No,
everything.
I think that it's a very fine line. Okay, for me, a lot of the enjoyment is as naive camp, as in like you have committed to this so much, and like to a point you don't realize how absurd it comes off to people, like the way
Yeah.
that you have given into it. But also there is a level of self-awareness that also I think permeates it. But it's just so much, and it just tries to do so much, and it's successful in some of it.
Hey.
It's just as a whole.
Okay,
It's
but
an
we can
experience
make that
I-
same argument for Emilia Perez, no, Chris?
No.
Okay,
Not
fine.
at all.
I was
First of
just
all, the
trying to
aesthetics,
swerve
it
it.
looks so ugly. That film
I was
looks
trying to
so
swerve.
bloody ugly.
Is it because of like bad green screen? Is it that?
No, it's not
No,
green
it's
screen.
that
It's
Mexican filter nonsense.
the drug cartel
It looks
aesthetic.
like-
Oh, so they're trying to yassify drug cartels?
No. They put a trans yassified story in a drug cartel aesthetic.
Yeah.
Come on, who wouldn't want Benicio del Toro to start singing in Sicario? Come on, like, who are like?
No, the idea I think is
nobody loves me. Oh, sorry.
the idea is to make it like a complicated trans story, but I just don't think the film has any. It doesn't give any character anything to do. I think like sabke, like they all have like their very. Anyways, we shouldn't discuss this right now. Tomorrow.
I mean, yeah. When did this turn into a camp discussion for Mega?
Anora, I don't think
If
is going
I
to be
dare to turn
camp
into
from
that.
any level, right? So.
Yeah,
one second.
I guess okay. Well, now
Oh,
that
I've
we're
started
talking-
recording, so all this will have to get chucked anyways.
Yeah, that's okay. We can leave it, and I can find a segue maybe. Like talking about camp and trans, the breakout movie director we're talking about, Tangerine, which is about trans characters and a trans friendship. It is about female, or I would say, the idea of female friendship in a trans relationship, where friendship is actually put through a lot of hoops, and
it
that's
takes
where-
place over one day, right?
shot
And
the
shot on an
time.
iPhone. Yeah.
Yes,
I
yeah.
still
I
think I'm
think that
going
was
to
a
cut a
big
lot of
one,
this. Anyways, hello. Welcome to our very special episode and our second attempt at recording this episode. The first attempt was recorded unsuccessfully by Hemant and Aryan. Aryan forgot to record his version of the audio. So if you want, I can release Hemant talking to himself as a separate file. That could be an additional sort of perk of listening to this podcast. I can directly DM it to you if you are that interested in knowing how mad
on the
sometimes
first tier of Patreon, you'll get all the recordings of talking to myself and no one else.
Yeah.
Where I'm also reacting to someone.
Yeah. It's like the eerie. Aryan was probably trying some experimental, he's a whatever stuff as a podcasting
He's
experiment.
like, this is how podcasts are echo chambers, where
It's that
commentary on-
scene in Megalopolis in the theater where like someone in the audience is supposed to speak to Adam Driver, but they don't put that in.
yeah. Oh yeah.
But okay, so I think you from the two voices you have heard, which people are there for this podcast, and this podcast episode is on Sean Baker's Anora, and like we did, I think, with the Payal Kapadia episode, a little bit on Sean Baker's filmography in general. We don't want to say that it's a comprehensive look at his filmography because it's not like we've gone through each and every movie and we've not done the Stanley Kubrick treatment as we did in July, August, and September, and October to some extent. So we are not doing that treatment, but it's more like we like his films, and some of us have had the first time experience of watching a Sean Baker film. So we've got two people here with very different sort of ins into this sort of world of Sean Baker, which Hemant keeps on telling me is a multiverse also. So we have
the SBC, the SBEU,
the SBEU. Yeah, this is for Chris, who will basically put it on Twitter. Twitter. I was about to say. Never mind. Anyways, we have Hemant and Chris. here. Both of them, again, as I said, have different ins on Sean Baker. They've come to it from different perspectives. I'm here just because apparently they need a moderator. I've not yet seen Anora, so I will basically be asking them questions or guiding them through this discussion if I can. And when it comes for them spoiling Anora, I myself will put that warning because I don't want it spoiled for myself. So anyone who wants to listen to this episode minus watching Anora can also, and I will of course put the timestamps wherever necessary for everyone else who also wants to listen to the spoilers, because Anora has been one of the most discussed films of recent times, just because it's an award season contender, one of the front runners for I think a lot of the awards. It's been winning a fair bit in the US competitions and whatever critical awards, critical circles, and I think that and The Brutalist are the two films which are sort of going head to head, it seems like, as of now. So we wanted to do an episode on this, I think a way back, about a month back maybe, but whatever, like complications and failed attempts at recording have made us delay this also. But anyways, today we are finally meeting here to discuss it. Sorry, if I sound unprepared, it's because I am, and I was called here last minute.
So I'm doing. You're called on to your duty. This is, power is in the hands of people who don't want power. It's a.
What is this, a conclave episode?
Are you the priest on your phone? Are you on TikTok?
Very demure, very mindful. I don't come to work with a green cut crease. I don't look like a clown when I go to work. I don't do too much.
We'll start by talking about Sean Baker a little bit. I know Cris hasn't watched any other Sean Baker film. This is his first. And by the way, Cris is returning again, just to mention this, to get brownie points. And he is now an admin on X. So please follow us there also.
If you call it X one more time, I will
sorry, Twitter. Twitter. Yes. Sorry, I confused. I'm sorry. I've joined it recently only, right? So I'm trying my best also.
Millennials, right?
Yes,
I don't know. These old people.
Yes. No, but I'm glad Cris is a regular now. We have so many episodes planned, Cris. I think we've already revealed on Twitter that we will be discussing Queer and Call Me By Your Name by Luca Guadagnino when Queer eventually releases online for everyone to be viewed. So for everyone else, sorry.
No, but I am the new Twitter admin at Quid Podcast. Please follow. Please engage. We are slowly trying to reach out to more people and get cancelled, as to quote Amartya and Dhruv. So.
Oh no, but I think we've got a good views on our YouTube thing for the All We Imagine episode, and even for this last Talk the Talk with the Sujit Sarkar film and C. Prem Kumar film, which I think Amartya and Sanjeet discussed. So yes, thank you for whoever it is reaching out to and whoever thinks that we are doing half a decent job. Today we'll try and do more than half a decent job, just like Sean Baker has done in most of his films, I think. And then Hemant can introduce you to the world of Sean Baker, I guess. And Hemant is looking very confused and worried about the fact that I've told him that he needs to introduce it. No, I'm simply saying this because Hemant has watched the most Sean Baker films. Yeah, I've gotten into his filmography since his breakout film, essentially Tangerine. I think what you wanted to discuss a little bit, Hemant, was the appeal, I guess, of the films that preceded Tangerine a little bit, right, from Sean Baker. So yeah, if for anyone who's not familiar with Sean Baker, maybe you can, slightly in your own broken sort of, way, guide them through his filmography a little bit.
Okay, so I mean, you will the log line for Sean Baker on Wikipedia. He is best known for directing independent feature films about the lives of marginalized people, especially immigrants and sex workers.
That's his auteurist stamp, sort of.
I guess, yeah. I would say that he comes from a generation of filmmakers which come from the film festival circuit, where they've had to where they've had to cast non-actors, people who are first-time actors, is how he calls it. And there's a great term that Dhruv had mentioned was typage.
Typage, I don't know what it is, but it was used. Basically, I think it was related to the fact that, and I guess if we are talking about Sean Baker, a little bit sort of harkens back to Italian neorealism to some extent. That famous movement of 1940, late 40s, early 50s, where the trend sort of set in of, exploring lives of people, as opposed to Hollywood stars, sort of in a classic Hollywood films. I think that sort of sensibility is there in Sean Baker's films, if I'm correct.
Right.
You can
Yes.
correct me.
I mean, yeah, that's totally right. I would say that he also pushes a little bit further, where he tries to give that archetypal treatment, like how you do in a blockbuster movie, to regular characters or regular people, and especially people who are in the fringes of society, who are looking back. I mean, who are the most affected by how a country is operating.
Oh, you're in the country where you live in. Yes.
I am right now in Canada though.
Okay, never mind.
I do live live in the US and live and work in the US, and I'm exposed to a lot of those issues that
you've luckily not been thrown out as of yet.
No, not yet. There was a time when in Mississippi, when I was trying to help someone get something off that they'd just dropped on the ground and give it back to them, where a kid told me, like, no, don't take it from him. He's Mexican. I was like, first, you're wrong. I'm Indian. and these kind of problems they were there before even like whatever this administration is going to be coming. It has been touting for a while now. So I feel like this kind of view into the fringe of society helps you understand that these problems are always there, and they always need a voice. And there's a shortage of voices which are given this much amount of control and access, and all for the argument that some directors do exploit regular people for making movies, and they don't really give the agency to the people that they're actually portraying.
Someone had made this criticism, and we will be delving in the latter part of this episode on the discourse around Sean Baker that has come, post Anora. The event, the standard pushback that a festival favorite and awards runner faces, sort of like that. But someone had made this comment that, oh my God, it's the NYU people all love it. And I was like, is he from NYU? And he is a graduate from NYU's Tisch School of Arts. So yeah, I mean, I will automatically love him now, right? Because
yeah, because you're an alumni.
Alumni, yeah, exactly.
Hello, alumni.
I've not liked Charlotte Wells's After Sun that much, and she's from NYU. Anyways,
really?
Yes.
What? Okay, we can unwrap that later, maybe.
Yes. Yeah,
that feels like you're like attacking me for not.
No. I'm just saying that you can not like certain films from your fellow college whatever. I don't know.
Mates, my mates back when we were partying together.
No. I think there's a stark divide between the critic and filmmaker divide that exists even in the cinema studies department and the people who are actually making films. So I think that's kept separate forever, which should be the case. Anyways, you were saying about Sean Baker and the need for voices. I think in American indie cinema, I guess.
Yes.
Just to sort of.
I think he is definitely taking the not taking the torch, or maybe he's in the same.
He is one of the more famous directors now, I think, right?
Popular. He is definitely. Yeah. I mean, like. You can clearly see that from his second film. Takeout, because it really shows how I mean, like. Kind of cyclical and kind of brutish the life is of someone in New York, and especially who is an immigrant in New York.
Yeah.
Because they talk about these things actually in that movie.
Sure.
I would start from the beginning really. Four Letter Words was his first film, and it has all non-actors. It's very much like, I would say, Slacker, but in a even
Slacker, for whoever's not aware, is Richard Linklater's first film.
Yes, yeah, and he really tries to view of young men in a way where you don't judge them, but you understand that everything that they're saying is very problematic.
Sure.
And he kind of has a music about his dialogue. I really love the way Sean
So
Baker.
you're saying observational a little bit, right? In the way they're sort of
Very observational, yeah. Same way, like you're just following a character in Slacker through the day and like meeting different characters.
Yeah.
In this, you have all the characters that you would meet anyway, but then they happen upon like just like regular life. They watch everything happen. Same way he's watching them happen.
Yeah.
And then
but I think what Richard Linklater comparison you bring is quite interesting, because I think there is probably a synergy in both of them and their way they approach films. Also, I've always found myself a little bit on the back foot with Linklater, just because I think it's like, what, I don't know, I don't think it counts as criticism, but for me his films are too American, whatever that means. To me it's like a Boyhood. For me, I'm just like it's alien to me, that experience. Also, I'm a little averse to some of the things he loves. For example, the sort of frat party culture and everything in college, right? I'm very I've never connected with it. So I guess it's that. But with Baker's film, I've never felt that. But now what you're saying about the connection between those two indie filmmakers sort of makes sense. At least whenever they're looking at sort of the people who are at the fringes. I mean, Baker does it more, but
yes,
he's also done it a fair bit, like especially with like his darkly comic stuff, like Bernie and all that, right?
I mean, Bernie is one great reference. Anyone wants to watch a Linklater movie without knowing it's Linklater, it's that movie. Bernie is one of those movies where it can be. It's like, I compare that a lot to Erin Brockovich, but for Jack Black.
Sure.
And but it's a highly recommend that movie. The main difference between Linklater and Sean Baker is the way they actually exercise empathy. And of course, the type of characters that they have.
Sure.
Linklater is more of a warm person, I feel, and he's going to have characters who are not exactly that grey comparatively to Sean Baker.
Sure.
I feel like Sean Baker keeps coming up with this reference, at least lately in his interviews. Keeps saying, where are the Kramer versus Kramer of the world? Where are the adult movies made by adults for adults? And there was a great conversation, a great video on YouTube. If you want to work and keep that in the background, is Brady Corbett and Sean Baker talking about their
directors
movies.
on directors, right?
Exactly, and from Variety, and they talk about similarly of indie movies and how indie movies tend to be more geared towards adults, and they are shown in film festivals where adults are coming, where you have money going towards movies being touted for award seasons rather than for giving
mainstream, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, and these are movies which actually did make money and had wide releases and had a lot of discourse about them, and that's the reason why reason why they are
low to mid budget film, I guess. Of you almost have like those old, again, I think Quid has I don't know, patented or whatever, but like it's a 70s independent film. Like I feel that's the vibe you get with even the Safdie brothers, or with Baker and with Linklater to a lesser extent, with like these two especially, I think, because these are new artists, and I think they are inspired also by some 70s filmmakers. Kramer versus Kramer is a 70s film, right? So so I think that ethos of morally complicated characters and morally complicated situations, I think that's a big sort of thing, right, in a lot of his work.
Right, and there's a lot of questioning of how some sort of societal norms. There's a great movie called Russia House, with Sean Connery, which I saw very early on, and I felt like this is something not like a like a blockbuster, but there you feel like you feel it's a blockbuster because you feel for the characters. You feel
Sure.
there is no global conflict, or the stakes aren't related to humanity ending. It's the stakes are that in Takeout, Willie you make all of his deliveries. Like in Four Letter Word, the stakes are that there's no stakes actually in Four Letter Words.
Sure.
That's one thing about that movie. I found it very frustrating and yet satisfying. Like after the movie, it's like someone giving you like a really nice insult. You feel mad, but you also, man, that's really funny. And you can't help but like notice it. And there's something about to be said for those kind of directors who try to build emotional stakes rather than building a physical, financial, economical.
It's the plot is secondary to character, right? So
and it's more subjective filmmaking other than, even though there is a trap that you can think that it's objective.
That is, I think that's a bit like, it's a good asterisk to put. Objective in film is, there's nothing.
It's not possible. Exactly.
In art only, I think. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
or in life mostly, but I guess there are truths, like,
I mean, please, like, you have got a philosophy major in this conversation right now.
Please contribute, Chris.
We don't want to go there. Yeah.
No, don't dig that well, but you can. I just think the truth is subjective thing is quite true, but then of course then you lead yourself into traps like, did the Holocaust actually happen, like all that stuff,
that's extreme. that's
no, but that's, if you're saying truth is subjective, then it all sort of
poignant right now.
Yeah. So no. There is a thing called documentation and fact, and and there are ways of showing that in film. I think I don't want to toot my own horn, but I have written a little bit about this when I was reviewing a documentary. So I will, if anyone is interested. If anyone, I know no one is, but that's okay. So, but I think, so
I'm so offended right now.
I mean, Chris,
the one
Chris is the only one. Yeah. So to that, I'll send you regardless. No, I'm shameless. I will send it to you at least. But I think so. We will. So I think Hemant has mentioned Four Letter Words and Takeout, but you were mentioning another film, Hemant, which you wanted to specially highlight. I guess. Do you want to highlight it now or in conjunction when we are talking about Anora?
I think I would talk about it like with the next movie maybe. Both the stories of Four Letter Words and Takeout are a bit, the story. There's no plot really.
Sure.
I mean, you just kind of following characters. You kind of have a crescendo in Takeout. There's no crescendo in Four Letter Words. But then when it leads up to at least the next movie after the one I saw, like there's a huge jump. Okay, I don't think everyone has seen like his earlier movies. I think the most people might have watched of his would be Tangerine. But there's a movie that before Tangerine, which is called Starlet, which I am a huge fan of. I think the only movie I've not seen of Sean Baker is Prince of Broadway. But I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit similar. Okay. Starlet is actually like the Starlet name is of the dog of the main character, and it's about that's the one that kind of tricks you into thinking that this is a person who has a normal life as such. Because they never tell you outright what they're going through. The story is about, the story is about two people technically. This is starring Ree Hemingway and Bezetka Johnson. So Bezetka Johnson is like an older person in this movie, and it's a lot about the movie is really about the character Jane, whose struggle in life is like trying to make it in LA, and she talks to her mom, and then you find out that their background. I mean, there's a thing with all characters in Sean Baker movies is their family life is very complicated, and you find out that her mom is a drug addict, and everyone around her is exposed to drugs. And then you kind of never know what she does for a living until the middle, where it's kind of just put in your face, kind of like a little bit on the nose. I'm not making a pun here. If you've seen the movie, where you see people's privates on faces, where you kind of get an exposure, almost a sudden exposure to her life. I mean, the similar way where you're talking about journalistic integrity, where subjective is objective, he is looking at her work objectively. But the way it's revealed is subjective in terms of you are exposed to what they're doing, and your judgment to, or lack thereof, to what she does for a living is left as a question.
Sure.
Rather than telling you that, oh, you should feel good about them, you should feel bad.
There's no background score that, like, tells you.
There's like, oh no, what did you do? What do you do for a
like
living?
Whatever that freeze frame thing comes.
There's like the three cuts, like, you zoom into her.
And you have like a 1 hour episode, like in Disclaimer, like, inverting the truth. Nonsense.
Oh my god, you want to go to Disclaimer?
That's tomorrow. Well, it is for tomorrow.
Well, that's good. Like, there's a nice little like teaser, the hate train that's coming towards you.
Let's not say hate train, like more like crushing disappointment train. Let's just say that.
मेरी तरफ से hate train है. It is a hate train.
That's why मेरा तो I have to. The director of that series has too much goodwill with me, no. So I'm for me it's just crushing disappointment. Anyways, Hemant, you were saying here.
Okay, yeah. So in the movie Starlet, he has you kind of see where what he's doing with the medium, like the way he edits and the way he kind of presents his characters, and that movie has a brilliant ending. It is a really nice ending.
I would also say that Tangerine, just to transition also swiftly, not swiftly, Tangerine and Florida Project and Red Rocket, I think all three have great endings also. Tangerine has a shot which I remember. It has a 2 shot, I think, as an ending, which I'm not going to spoil who, but like that, it's still 2 shot, which I thought it was like, wow, like, because the whole film is so frenetic. It's about like this, these 2 people going through, it's again LA, right? Like a small part of it.
It's the street, it's one.
The other thing why it was popular was the iPhone, like it was shot.
Like you will find that, like, even the way he shoots his other movies, you kind of feel that he does not care about the medium. He does not care about like how you shoot it. He does not care. He edits his own movies, which is awesome, really impressive in one way, because he knows exactly where the emotional touch points
crescendo sort of,
and he can form those crescendos based on like trying to reach that, like that.
It's interesting that you say that, because there's a lot of formal brilliance in Red Rocket and Florida Project. No, I'm not transitioning. I just mean it genuinely, because one of the main things I remember about Florida Project is how it creates a contrast between background and foreground. Like that's one of the main things running throughout that film for me. Like it's a lot about what you see, but what is lurking behind, and that's sort of communicated through the discrepancy between that in the visual language. From whatever I remember, this been a while.
I think he does this a lot, where he has like 2 movies which kind of have the same. He does 2 things at a time. Like he does one thing, and it'll have a little bit of a follow through to the next one. Because like Starlight is like, again, it's all about it's amazing scenes. It has like this incredible scene where one of the characters trying to win the other character over and trying to get them to do something or escape their reality with the older character, and it's also about elder abuse in that way. And it has that complexity which I really appreciate, where you have a character who's doing a shitty thing, but for the right reasons. But then what happens when they find out, and what happens to the relationship?
Sure.
And that kind of it makes it insidious. It makes it a lot more tangible as a real relationship. And that's what really stood out for me in Star. But I really like the characters, and there's 2 characters in that follow through in all of the movies.
Okay, interesting.
One character is there in all of the movies. 2 characters. I mean, the second one is there shortly in Tangerine. Okay. So there's a character who's a porn star / drug dealer in Starlet. He's played by James Ransone, and he's there in this awesome HBO mini-series called Generation Kill, which is written by David Simon and Ed Burns, who also created another amazing show called The Wire, if you've heard of it.
Oh, okay. Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
Wire people. Yeah. Yeah.
And in that, he's a great character. And I always wondered where he went. Like, what was he doing with his life? Like, he also is like, he plays Eddie in It Chapter 2. So he's the older version of Eddie. So amazing actor. He's there in Starlet as the drug dealer, and it's kind of like using Jane and her friend Melissa. So what happens is she gets like, there's a scene where one of her friend gets fired, and she's figures out that like all these seedy people who are actually creating the porn, the porn that you're watching are not protecting the actors.
Okay, yeah, got it.
They're employees. They are employees. They're working. It's work. So they're not getting the benefits that they have. They keep talking about, I don't even have health insurance. She sees a car get taken away, and then the main character comes to her friend and says, "Hey, your car is getting stolen." Like, nah, it's just repo. And then she just goes back to sleep, and that's how their life just slowly falls apart. There's no Goodfellas moment, there's no end of Wolf of Wall Street where the shit goes down. Like, there is no reality check slap in the face in his
Florida
slow burn. The characters.
And Tangerine, both I feel have that moment.
That kind of that character suffering, I would say, is a way to actually stay true to their journey. And I really like that, because this through line can go all the way to Anora, where they make the characters suffer in some way, but they give them chances to redeem themselves. But the fact that they don't take those chances are not because the characters themselves are not they're not capable of making that. Is it that they decide to do that and they have agency to do? Okay. And that's one thing that I feel is missing in a lot of movies, which kind of preach you that like these fringe characters.
It's the miserablest sort of, let's take this one character. Like, this is not Sean Baker's film, because in his films, hardly ever I felt that these characters are like succumb to that one. Like, the filmmaker creates this miserable world in which they keep on punching them into the ground. That's not what I've gotten an impression in Baker's films, whatever I've seen. And we'll talk about the discourse around Anora a little bit later.
Right. But first, I did cry a lot, yes.
Okay, yeah. But I'll let Cris speak, because I know Cris hasn't seen the other other Sean Baker stuff. So I think we'll transition to Anora here, and we'll Hemant, you bring in other Sean Baker stuff there only.
You'll find out.
Bring it up.
Yeah.
But it's all non-spoiler territory as of now. If it's spoiled, it'll only be for me, I suppose. But no, Cris, please go ahead. This is your first experience with this with filmmaker. What did you think of Anora, and what is Anora about? If you want to expand on that a little bit.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, your experience watching the movie,
Yeah, so I enter into this. So I had never heard of Sean Baker before. The first time I'm exposed to him is when Cont happens this year, and the sort of discussions around both Anora and then all the marginalized and all that's going on. That's the first time I hear about him, and at the time, obviously, it's all praises. And then two other things happen where it comes back into conscious. One is when the US theatrical release happens. That's when it's sort of the public gets access to it. And then also I saw mostly love for it. And then last week, I think it came out. Right?
Yeah, last Tuesday, I think.
Two things happened simultaneously. One is it comes out on streaming. And the second is Mikey Madison goes on Actors on Actors. We were talking about variety earlier.
Pamela Anderson?
She goes on Actors on with Pamela Anderson, and there happens a discussion about intimacy coordinators, where Mikey Madison, says that her and Baker opted to not have intimacy coordinators on the set of Anora, and that started a whole sort of discourse which fed into the idea of Baker, which we'll get into when we get to that part. But so there was a lot of buzz going around, so I was like, might as well watch it now before I get like too like bogged down with the discourse to not be able to enjoy it. So that's how I entered. So I know nothing about because filmography or anything when I enter it, and of all the things I was expecting when I I'm watching a film about sex work and all these things, I am not expecting it to be an out and out comedy, which is like something that absolutely took me by surprise. And I was like, this is really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
And I had an incredible time. Like, just just experience as an experience, I was just like, this is so much fun. I think
because it's a long movie. It's 1 hour. It's his longest movie. 2 hours 19 minutes or something.
It is his longest movie. Yes,
Does it feel long?
It does not. I feel
it does not feel long at all. It paced really, really well. It just like runs through, or it stops when it needs to, and it like speeds through when it
That's very Tangerine. I feel like it's he knows when to, as Hemant was saying, like it knows when to hit the speed.
Kind of relax. I mean, there is. I mean, note on his comedy. Okay, there's a great line in Starlet. Okay, back to Starlet, where she goes to a yard sale when she first meets the elder person, and in the yard sale she finds a flask, a thermos flask, and she keeps saying that, "Hey, is this like an urn? Will I find a dead person in this?" to the thermos flask. So that's the kind of brand of comedy that he kind of goes for.
So I mean, when you're talking about a film that won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and all that baggage that comes with it, this is not what I was expecting at all. And I just thought there's just there's a simultaneous. I know the idea of being lived in or whatever is a bit sort of.
It's a cliche term, but you can use it. Yeah.
There is a fundamental understanding of the world that Baker has, and I was telling these guys that a lot of my work is in representation, and sex work is a really, really tricky space because you get a lot of from the perspective of people who don't consider sex work to people who are like, oh, it is work, but nobody will go into it willingly. They only go if they are in negative circumstances, to the people who say that, someone can opt into it. But then, there has to be nuance where, you can opt into it, but there are problems that happen because you're doing sex work under capitalism. So you got those issues. So it's a very, very tricky space. And I was very apprehensive going into it. And I was genuinely surprised by how, like you were saying, it was how non-judgmental it was. Like, it's just, this is how it is. And he's showing that this is why it is alluring and appealing, and why this is such a big industry, while also, making this sort of larger critique without, preaching or beating you over the head with it. So it invested you in that sort of character drama as well as the sort of comedy thing really, really well. So I genuinely, I had a great, great time watching it.
Yeah.
I mean, one note on the story of it as well, of what it's about, is that it's about Anora, who's a stripper in New York City, and she is connected to she's voluntold that you're supposed to be going and giving one Russian oligarch's son a good time, and he says, "Make me proud." and the only connection that both of them have, and the one that really makes it deeper, is the fact that she can understand his language, his native language, even though she can't speak it, but she can understand. There's a real value that comes from. There's an emotional depth that comes from the fact that is the reason, not because that she's going to be naked soon or they're going to have sex, is that she could understand what he was saying. And that was that felt like another dimension of what sex work can be. I mean, like, have you seen movies where it's comedic, where a dude is just there's a very rich dude, he gets a prostitute at a hotel room, and all he does is cry to her. and
Poor Things, maybe something happens in that, like that. I don't know. Do we want to delve into Poor Things and the discourse again?
Please,
on that?
The people who don't like Anora and the people who don't like Poor Things is one circle.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's up. That Venn diagram has a
It's a circle.
That means I will like it.
Yeah,
'Cause I like
dislikes
Poor
Poor
Things.
Things, dislikes Anora.
Okay.
I mean, there is a difference between how the scenes were shot in Poor Things versus, or the sex scenes were shot in Poor Things versus how they were shot in Anora, because there is, I mean, I don't know whether this is a direct result of having a intimacy coordinator versus not, but there is a certain level of pacing and certain level of point that's made in Poor Things, which is not always made in Anora.
Okay. It's more
They made
blurred.
it's more blurred, where they let the scene pan out as it's supposed to, so that the tension is not lost, because
Sure.
there is a lot of tension that can happen. I mean, there's a lot, I mean, all the sex scenes in Poor Things are more comedic.
There is
And
it's largely comedic, yeah.
yeah, and there's a breadth of sex scenes in Anora. I don't know why you're talking about so much about sex scenes, but
I
feel
mean,
like
it's part of the movie. It's, I'm guessing, a crucial part of the movie.
No, I think it's pretty
It is,
important. I
Yeah.
get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is a variety that you don't see often in movies where there is sex and it's an adult movie, where showed in a more empathetic way, where you're actually seeing two characters be in an activity together. I mean, those characters can do anything. Like, you have two characters going and killing someone, you'll get pulp fiction, but you'll still get that kind of character interplay because of how they
I mean,
talk.
shooting sex scenes itself has been such a contentious topic for the longest time. In a lot of
I
people
mean,
don't
talk
watch
about
sex
Tan.
scenes in movies, right? That's the whole.
Yeah, that is
one of the
a whole other
which I think is
discourse
just
that,
like,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, sure, like, fine. Do you just want to reserve it for pornography then? It's. But why would you believe some films benefit so much from having intense, like, that becomes a central thing for the film. It's not just excess, it's not kya cool hai hum 3. Let's just say that,
Wow,
it's not
man, what
dating.
talking about
What a reference.
classics. This is the reference that we come here for.
That's because that movie, I watched that movie and I was like, this is not a movie. I was like, this isn't a movie.
You watched that movie.
I was like,
actually, my
7
wife
years
told
old.
me this joke. Okay, like Deler Mendi actually was commented on a lot, that like he only was famous because his songs, like the music videos of his songs, have naked ladies on it. And you know what his response to that was?
What?
Tunuk tunuk.
I know.
Because it's just him, and he was like, "It's my music, but that's why it's good."
It's like every 3 months that tweet, like, it cycles in Twitter and it goes viral about
Oh, really?
him
Okay.
doing this.
Yeah. I guess I'm not on the internet much that I find all this amusing.
No,
But
but
yeah.
no, but I mean, both. I think that's a different. But I know even when we discussed All We Imagine Is Light, Chris brought up people having problems with the sex scene and that, which I was just like, that's one of the most tastefully executed sex scenes I've seen in a while. I'm like, if you have problems with that, if something goes like more in a frank direction where it's like, more explicit with what it's showing and what it's not showing, you'll probably have like a heart attack watching it. It's like, do you want to have your films, do you want to feel something when you watch films, or do you not want to? I think that's the bigger
No,
question with
I think that whole discourse is emblematic of like a rising sense of conservatism, because a lot of people who are anti, like, sex scenes are also anti-pornography, which is also like a whole other area of thing, which again we do not want to get into. So
Sure.
I will just
No, I'm just bringing it up because I know that Anora that's a central focus of, I assume, would be a central focus in Anora, right? Because Red Rocket is very seedy when it comes to all this stuff. Like, it really, like, digs into the uncomfortable space of someone trying to essentially groom a young girl into getting her into the porn industry, right? That's the whole
Right,
thing.
that's in Red Rocket, yeah.
Red Rocket, yeah, that's in Red Rocket.
Great movie. I mean, I think personally that's his best movie
Sure.
because of because of the Lolita.
Because you like blue films, quote unquote.
No, oh my God, dude, like, why is this become
After
a
he
thing?
says Lolita without contextualizing it.
Without contextualizing it, yeah, I guess. And
In Red Rocket, it's more like a sardonic point or satirical point of view he takes in that scenario.
And
Yes.
it kind of empowers the people around him who
Yes.
are affected by this archetype. This archetype, he could be anyone, honestly. He could
Yeah.
be someone who's just a boss or like or a corporate person. He could be Michael Douglas in Wall Street, because he has a certain worldview of the
Yes.
that everything is against him, that he's a man and he's in the porn industry. There's a great movie because of characters. Okay, there's a scene of him. He's so useless. The Red Rocket character of the from
Simon Rex, who's become popular in that, who's been quote unquote exploited by Hollywood so much now that he's doing just roles which are that. Like he is
he
that
exploits
character.
people. Yeah, he's there in even in what's that Zoe Kravitz movie where he's also another.
Oh yeah, the Blink Twice.
Character. Blink Twice. He's CD in that.
Yeah,
as well.
I saw him in the trailer and I was like, oh, 100% he's like a sex pest in this also, isn't he?
Yeah, and
he's
yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's not a comment on the actor. I don't know who the actor is. It's just saying what he
No,
is.
I mean, okay, so backstory on him. Simon Rex himself was a sex
A
worker.
porn actor, right? No. Or
Yeah,
was it-
and he used to he used to be involved in so many things early on in his career that he was only exposed to the kind of people that would look at that, and
Sure.
the kind of people who look at that are people who eventually went into Vice and who started in MTV.
Sure.
So I always tried to because of that generation of movies, I kind of always got. I talked about this in when I was talking to myself, when Aryan was kind of listening but not being recorded, where I wanted to compare him to all the other MTV that aesthetic that came from the MTV generation, because what they did was that they looked at it and they were like, hey, look at this, laugh at it, and that's how they kind of sold the view of that society.
Yeah.
And what he wanted to do was be more empathetic and be more objective in his view on what is actually happening and what needs to happen for people to actually have a good life. Like in the Red Rocket character is so seedy. There's a like when he goes into explicitly explaining what he does in the industry, he's explaining it to a lady who's a henchman whose mother he steals drugs from, never sells, and just uses it himself. He was so bad at being a porn star in LA that he couldn't make it, that he had to come back to his Texas hometown.
Yeah. I guess that's much more of a CD film, but like CD in the sense that it is taking the POV of his character also. Like it's in that it's in that the sliver which Scorsese a lot of times function in. Like with gangsters, where he's taking the perspective of it, but also looking at that perspective. It's that double sort of thing, hard or sometimes impossibly hard thing to do. But in Anora, I would say that's not the case, right? Because Anora would be a sympathetic character, I would assume.
Yes, but I mean the best part is that Anora was not made into the Mary. She was not pious.
Absolutely.
The character does not have this sort of plot armor of never being a bad person.
Sure.
Because she is someone who's surviving, and the survival makes you this way. And it's the reason why you kind of get, a view from her of what's going on around her without having to explain overly what her background is.
Sure.
There's no
just from a
lost
reaction.
innocence for her to return to, essentially, which is how a lot of sort of films about sex workers, especially young sex workers, are framed, where
Showgirls, like that's a one that Aryan had kept
Like
about.
Paul Verhoeven's
Yeah.
Showgirls, the camp classic.
Yes, and also glad that Cris is there.
Yes.
Have you seen Showgirls?
I've read a lot about it. I haven't seen
Okay.
it, but again, camp classic. So read lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's got Gina Gershon in it, who I'm a huge fan of. If anyone wants to see a great, another, not a camp classic, but it's a great sexy thriller. I also, first of all, I don't like blue movies. I like sexy thrillers. Okay, I like thrillers that don't have
Thanks
like
for
just
clarifying. Hemant.
right characters. This is really not a great joke to have on you, especially when you're going to be on Twitter and shit.
That's
Okay,
Chris,
clip
that's the confession, right? Yeah,
That's the
actually.
teaser.
Yeah.
It's like, first off, there's nothing wrong with watching these movies. I mean, I know that this escapism in a certain way is a little bit of like a voyeuristic escapism, which is a trap that it can go into. But you need directors like Sean Baker, like Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah.
And also Lizzie Borden, who interviewed Sean Baker. I've only seen one movie of hers called Working Girls. It's very similar. It's about
I think she has that really famous movie, Woman in Flames, a girl, I forgot the title. But
Born in Flames.
Born in Flames.
Music by the Bloods in that, and the Red Crayola. So it's a really great music in that movie. What I wanted to like put across in terms of Sean Baker's work for how he presents the seedy type of characters in his movies. The Red Rocket character is someone who's a suitcase pimp. So he's someone who's trying to like. He can't do well in his own life, and he's trying to find a 17-year-old or he's just like, oh, she's legal. He doesn't care that it's like that scene in a Transformers movie where Mark Wahlberg is angry at his daughter.
Wow, you told me that I brought up Kya Cool Hai Hum 3 and then you also bring up Transformers, but okay.
Transformers, but it's so weird that the character that he's mad at, the boy,
lecherous, the lecherous.
Yeah,
right.
he lectures on the statutes how someone can have a relationship with a minor. So I was like, that is so specific that it's messed up, and in this case,
you know what? Now Sean Baker should make a movie on Michael Bay.
I wouldn't be surprised that there are stories out there about him. I'm so sure.
You've seen him.
Yeah,
anyway, sorry, go ahead. You were saying.
What I wanted to say was that even in Anora, you kind of have characters around her who are seedy, but she is from a seedy world already. So she just wants to get out, and she's like, you kind of get an idea of like what that kind of world can do to a person. Is her biggest rival, you know, that lady, the other girl in her biggest rival in the book club, kind of like just like blows your mind that like that person can hate on her so much. Where it struck me was that like that person in her own story wants to get out of that world too. And that's exactly why she's doing that. She's trying to get the oligarch son so that she can get out of that world. And it's kind of this similar kind of through line through all of his movies.
It's like a ladder, essentially. I've always thought of
a ladder.
Thank you to Parasite for this, Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. Like, you always think of like people essentially on like different levels and essentially each of them trying to push the other down, sort of like that. So I guess it's how you understand how one is exploiting, why one is choosing to exploit another, right? Like it's to get out of their situation in a similar way, right? So
and that's a similar thing that Aryan had also said about Showgirls, because that character she kind of gives up her morality to be able to get out of the world that she's having to accept. Like she wants to be a showgirl. Like there's a showgirl. There's a movie called Showgirl starring Pamela Anderson that she talks about in Actor on Actor, and that's more like, I would say, a very realistic version of Substance. The Showgirl, the Pamela Anderson movie. But Showgirls is something of like a camp, very theatrical version of what Anora's that little subplot was of her and her friend.
Okay.
Because it's this is like I had said again with Aryan was that could be Brooklyn, be Swasha Ronan's character trying to get out of Ireland and all of her family
Okay.
trying to pull her back. So it's a similar kind of story. There's an archetype that she's been put into, but she's trying to get out of that. And that's the reason why she reacts the way that she does. There's a lot of times where you feel like Anora is not making the great decision, or it's not hitting her that something is going on.
Oh, is that
And
the
I don't
criticism?
spoil
I'm just
anything.
going to also start to sort of lead into that a little bit.
Yeah. So
is
I
that
mean,
the-
I don't know if necessary. Like, I think there's a lot of, I would say, misinterpretation of like Mikey Madison's character, because Hemant had mentioned before, but the idea of that she is not a character in her own story feels like a misreading of what is going on, at least for me, because there's been a huge discussion about is Anora in love with Mark Edelstein's character, or
the
does she
Timothy
think she's in
Chalamet
love?
lookalike? That was the whole thing.
yeah.
Yeah, Vanya, as he calls himself. But
Yeah.
because I feel like it's a very interesting line that Baker sort of treads, because I think what he's trying to say is she is in love with this fantasy of getting to escape. It doesn't really matter whether she actually likes Vanya's character or not, because that is not what is motivating her. It is very much that idea that she can in one fell swoop just essentially have her life bought out, or like someone buy her out of the misery that she, or the not the misery, but the difficult situation that she's in. And so a lot of the criticism is, I think, a very fundamental misunderstanding of what Baker is trying to do with Anora, if that makes sense.
Okay.
The part that it's actually a buying into agency is what my theory is. There's no one who says this, but but is that like she does not have any agency in the beginning. In the beginning she's mostly just a worker. She's just an employee there. And once she gets a taste of that world, she kind of gets an idea of that, and then she kind of gets an idea of that person as well. Like she understands Vanya to some extent, because the relationship that she has with him is just like she just they go they first I mean they have like the young people, they're having sex all the time, and he's playing video games and she's helping her, like it feels cute at first. I love that they had like 3 scenes after that of them doing the same thing to let the light go out of her eyes, and that's when you kind of realize, is this a relationship or is this not? And he very openly tells her. The thing is that I think he never really hides his insidiousness. Like he kind of very is open about the fact that like, so the whole reason, I don't think this is a spoiler. This is there in the
No, it's in the trailer, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, where he asks her to marry her, and the main reason he did that is to give a big fuck you to his parents. And to be like, okay, since you're a US citizen, I'll become a US citizen. Then I will never have to go back to Russia.
Okay.
And that's his escape. So she's trying to escape her life. He's trying to escape his life. And where she gets agency because he bought her, not bought her out. I wouldn't call it bought her out. I would call that he just decides that you are now part of my life. And then
Sort of power, what power can.
it is a power straw. Yeah, it is a kind of power play.
Yeah.
Where, it kind of like it gave me a lot of vibes from a little bit of Ice White Shut, but I don't think they're not married. It's not as complex. But yeah, I feel like the
can I be? I know I'm gonna sort of dig into a little bit of the Eyes Wide. Does it give more space to the female character than Eyes Wide Shut did?
Oh yes, it does. Yeah, yeah. I would say definitely. Yeah.
Wait, I mean, I am presuming a lot of people who don't like Anora also are champions of Eyes Wide Shut, because presumably everyone on the internet loves that movie. So I would want to
I think
know.
This is a comment on the fact that it's written by a dude. My wife made a great comment after the movie was over. I saw it with my wife, by the way.
Okay.
I said it was a great experience watching it.
Eyes Wide Shut or Anora?
No, Anora.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, well, my wife loves Eyes Wide Shut as well, but she has different reasons. So she's also used to be a psychology and literature student.
Nice. Yeah.
She's in marketing and stuff. So she introduced me to all like the literature, like Jean-Paul Sartre and stuff like that.
Okay.
To understand why
Chris's bread and butter. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I have like a passing understanding of it. It's not deep at all. But her comment was that he's over empathizing with her characters, and because of that over empathy, you kind of don't know what to feel for her. And I was like, I thought that that's the point. I thought that this whole movie is about work environments. This movie is all about how people's environments, what are circumstances that they're in, how they kind of mold you. And this is also my comment on like the whole movie has like like little bit like, commentary. You can see a lot of people have made like the comments on like the production designer has made a comment on the fact that there's red and blue in a lot of the movie because it's a commentary on the American dream and how much of a lie it is, and how the system does not work for everyone. It only works for the rich.
Is that a comment now, or is that just like truth?
I mean, now it could be an echo chamber we're in right now.
Yeah, the thing is, the film is not too in your face about it, which is what I really appreciate.
Yeah.
It's what I enjoyed about it the most is you're able to enjoy it as a story first. And but while like tangentially you're also getting this sort of message that he's trying to put out. Like it's not being in your face.
You see the message as opposed to you are told it, right? Is that a correct way to put it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is at that, and what the point that your wife brought up is actually why that ending, which again, not spoiling as of now, but that ending is
you can spoil, it's fine. What I'll do is I'll not watch this movie till Feb now so that I don't remember anything. So,
wow, that's a good way.
Yeah. You can spoil it, it's fine. So 1 second. Spoilers for everyone and me.
Yeah, so I'll just go through the plot a bit. So Vanya and Anora get married, and then essentially Vanya's parents find out, and Mikey Anora is under this thing that his parents will agree eventually and they can sort of live like that. But very clearly, extremely rich Russian oligarch. So they are like, and then they say a lot of like derogatory stuff towards Anora, and they're like, you're married a prostitute and all that sort of thing. So they send three people. One is his godfather, the godfather's brother, and this one Russian goon.
Yeah, because there's one actor who's been consistently also mentioned as one of the best parts of the film. I don't know.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Yeah. In this Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam, he is the Ajay Devgan.
He is.
जब तक मैं तुम्हें तुम्हारी मंजिल तक नहीं पहुंचा देता, तुम्हारी हिफाजत मेरी जिम्मेदारी है।
किसने सौंपी थी आपको ये जिम्मेदारी? किसने कहा था आपसे कि मुझे यहाँ ले आए? और फिर क्या रिश्ता है हमारा?
Yeah,
this is another Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam rendition then. Okay, fine.
Yes, yeah.
No, he sort of veers a little bit into the textbook nice guy, not all men type of thing, but I really like that archetype. Okay. So I mean, I'm not complaining.
I mean, I think this is not all men. I think context. I think that was the whole point of the reason why he was there, and the tension that he had with Annie.
So these three come, and their idea is to get both of them to court so that they can annul their marriage, and then Vanya can be shipped back off to Russia.
Yeah.
And that's when this sort of screwball comedy part of it starts, where Vanya essentially just runs off and abandons Annie with these three guys, and then the remaining of the film is them sort of tracking Vanya down and then getting the marriage annulled. The film, and so throughout the film, you've got these moments where this character Igor, played by I think Yura Borisov is his name.
Yes, that's his name.
He sort of he's the only person who has any level of like recognition that Annie is a person and is not just this sort of ball that they are throwing around and sort of like, oh, iska, they're like, you're getting it annulled. It's like, it's not even a question whether you want it, kya hai, your his wife, whatever, nothing. So
also there's a certain amount of like condescension that the character, the character's Toros, who's like the one that kind of pushes everyone towards getting this done, because he's in like, again, there's a comment again on work environment and how people are treated, is that dude is so stressed in the whole movie. Played by Karen Karagolian, who's the other character that I said, who's there in all of the movies since Takeout. He's been around actually. Okay. Yeah, he's one of the characters, and he's one of the people that the delivery guy goes to, and then he's also the character in Starlet, who's the boss, the CD boss who runs the porn establishment. He's also the driver in Tangerine, who's again has a horrible, stressful life in that movie. Yep. And the same dude is over here.
Basically, getting a sense that everyone has a reason for how they act, sort of like without, of course,
and
stopping
in
the film.
service and at the hands of the upper class or the people who have sort of.
For me, this is always, I always cite like this. I don't know if people have seen this. I mean, a lot of people have, but whoever hasn't, A Separation by Asghar Farhadi. There's this scene where there's this the person he's working in the court office essentially, who has to basically look at all these cases that come over his way, and the main cases of like two people trying to get a divorce essentially there. So he, like, just through his body language, like the way what he tells people in one scene sort of gives you an indication of his entire life. And it's like, I understand why you are doing this, and the film has not done anything to stop the drama and tell me that. It's just telling you via the action of what he's at that particular moment in time. So I always think of him whenever you're talking about stuff
beautiful
like this.
Beautiful screenwriting matter. And this speaks highly of also how well Sean Baker writes his characters.
Yeah.
Because in there is a sense of helplessness that they have looking at Annie, because the fact that she believes so hard that oh no, Vanya just left, he's just somewhere, we just need to find him. That it would be frustrating in any other movie, but the fact that the other characters are frustrated with her just as much as we are as an audience is why it makes it more more revealing when they talk about how they need to solve this issue. Like, she's a problem that they that for them. And I think, as you said, Chris, Igor was the only one who was treating her as a human being. And that is something that she does not see, because the fact that her first interaction with her is that she is half naked, gagged, and stuck in that house, which reminded me a lot of there is there's a scene in Suspiria. That's all I could think of. They're stuck.
Which one?
She's on a couch, and she's just screaming there. Or not, she's not screaming, she's just scared there. And I felt like, oh my, this girl. And that whole scene made everyone uncomfortable in the audience. And Aryan saw it with like a full theater, is what he had said. And his experience was that like everyone was like laughing, and then everyone was just extremely uncomfortable once you got to that scene.
Sure.
And and that living room scene kind of like made the basis of the relationship she had with Igor. And that's where he gets to shine, is because his eyes and his acting are all based on this just a job. This is just a job. Like, he has his hand on her mouth, okay? And it's like a top-down shot of them, like just on the couch. And it looks like it really feels like the whole time that she's really in a lot of danger, because the way he edits it and the way he paces and frames it makes it seem like something horrible is about to happen, and that kind of keeps you on an uneasy phase.
Yeah, I think someone compared it to Uncut Gems, which I was like,
oh yeah,
Safdie brothers.
Okay, hot take. Okay, Safdie brothers are Sean Baker light. They are Sean Baker without the empathy. they are making movies on the characters that Sean Baker thinks are seedy. So
it's not a that's a word. You can have that argument. I think that's a good hypothesis. I've really enjoyed their films, but I think that your point is taken. Yes, absolutely. But Uncut Gems has that, I remember, like, you really like white knuckle tension, sort of like that. It's like your palms are sweating like most of the film. It's so like energetic also in that sense. But anyways, Chris, you were saying?
No, but in that sense, it's the touches that Baker gives. Like, I love that when these guys first enter the house when this is happening. The other two like storm in. They're all like shouting at Vanya, and Igor is just told to sit next to Annie, and they're just like this before all the fighting starts, and he just goes, he looks like this like Russian thug. He's like bald and wearing like a hoodie and stuff, and he just goes hi.
Adidas originals jacket here.
Jacket, and it's like from the very like the word go, you see that this guy sees Annie, not like Hemant said, not like a problem that needs to be dealt with.
Sure.
And so then they sort of manage to get them to a court, and then there's drama there because they got married in Vegas, but they are in Brooklyn when this happened. So then they have to fly down to Vegas to get the marriage annulled. And the film essentially ends where this whole annulment has happened. And so Igor has to drop Annie back home. And as he drops her back home, there's this, I think it's a wonderfully shot scene where essentially Annie looks at him, and he essentially offers, so she had told, that the scenes there in the trailer as well, that she had told that I needed a minimum of a 3-carat ring to get married to you. And he had essentially, Toros had confiscated that ring from her, but at the end, along with the money that they had promised for the annulment, he gives her that ring that he's essentially stolen from these people. You keep this, and you'll find your way back. And her immediate reaction is to initiate sex with him, because and then he forced, essentially in a way that he tries to kiss her, and then she breaks down. She essentially just like stops and then starts crying, and then he holds her and he cries. And it's a scene where essentially like no words are spoken, but it's extremely hard hitting. The way that it is shot, it's so claustrophobic, but it's also you see so much of Anora's life as being transactional, but the fact of the matter is, because it's in a way ambiguous, a lot of people are sort of interpreting it in a lot of different ways. But for me, it was it hits to her that her every moment in her life is a transaction. It is always, you do something, you pay me, I do this for you, you do this, I do this for you. And they have like a wonderful, like a very interesting conversation the night before when this happens. There are also, I think, Hemant that I can get into. But then it like hits her, and when he tries to kiss her, it is genuine intimacy, and it's for the first time someone sees her again, like as a person and not as something to be traded, essentially. And that's what causes her to break down. So like I thought that ending was just really, really like well done. Again, it's gotten misinterpreted a lot, but
Yeah,
that's
it's
what.
supposed to be a cathartic ending, but they feel like this, they are just trying to drive home the fact that, oh no, she's gonna always stay the same. I felt like that was a
Okay.
change. Is that she can finally understand and recognize the fact that my whole life has been a transaction with everyone. The first time that he's trying to kiss like that, I feel like that there is a certain line that there is a kiss and then there is something else. And that is where she kind of felt that this become too emotional for me. And that's where she breaks down, because the only catharsis that she ever got to have, she never got to have a catharsis in the entire movie, and this is the only catharsis that she gets to have. And she always wanted to have that with Vanya, and that scene could have been on the private jet where he actually tells her. And I love the fact that they left the Vanya is so goddamn useless. Like he's so just afraid and unaccountable, like just not never accountable for his actions. And it's just irresponsible all the way throughout. And I love the fact that this is something else. This has happened before. Tauros is like, man, this time he did it again. Man, this time he really did it. Like that level of frustration that he has brewed with everyone around him because of his first inaction, his spoiledness from all the money that he has, and the lack of care and how unempathetic he is to everyone else. I mean, he touts to be a nice guy, but he's really not really a nice guy at all.
He's the nice guy trademark. That
Yeah, he
idea.
is. Yeah, and that's where you kind of get the two examples of Igor and Vanya. You get two flip side of and with Anora being the one who's observing both of them, but also being affected by them. I love the fact that when they actually spoke on the private jet, where he felt the most safe. That's where he feels most safe. Vanya did not like any other environment except for his private jet, where he could be honest. And he tells her that oh no, we just this was nothing. That's where she was supposed to have the catharsis, but since it was still a transaction that she had to have, she was like, I need to get my money. For all this, I need to have something. I maybe the weakest point was that mother character. I don't know who are the
she was a bit too evil machination, evil mother sort of laughing
Sasuma.
into the camera.
She suddenly she's like, oh, you.
That's why you need the tadan essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes a comment about Annie's Russian, and it just feels so forced. In that moment.
And I think maybe that's where I kind of little bit lost the movie, but it came back when she gets to have her, or not redemption, her comeuppance, where you kind of know that it doesn't matter, their life will not be affected in any way. But the fact that the husband laughs so fucking hard at Annie's comment is so satisfying, and that kind of closes that loop a little bit. But the thing is that the emotional catharsis was supposed to happen between. She saved all of that energy. I like Maggie Madison's acting in this a lot. Is that I feel like she had a comfort that kept growing and growing in terms of how sad, or not how sad, how she was reacting to the situations around her. She kind of becomes more insular. You feel like that thing was about to happen in the private jet, doesn't, and then you get it in the ending where that emotional catharsis from her comes out. And that's where I was like, okay, so she's only used to this form of catharsis, sexual catharsis, and the only she had to go through so much to be able to bring that side out of her to someone that she felt safe with. I felt like that was a test. That ending scene was a test for Igor, and he passed it sort of, and then she was like, okay, so now I can be myself.
I was about to ask you guys, because I don't want to bring this. I know I'm going to bring it tomorrow, this series up tomorrow. But one of the issues, and I don't want to just dump on it. But the issue, and I don't know how much the criticism towards, and we can move on to the discourse. I think you guys did a great job of talking about the film itself. But the discourse sort of, because one of the things in disclaimer, and disclaimer for everyone that I'm not maybe going to spoil it a little bit. It's the sense that, you go on this long-winded journey with this character, and you realize by the end that this character actually is like the show or the series or whatever, the film in this case, actually does the character a disservice. Like by the end of disclaimer, I was like, what? Like you took a complicated character and then reduced her to something which was not complicated. Is that a similar complaint that sort of is in Anora? I guess I just want to get to that.
No, I think it's a no. Yeah. If I may, I think it's a far more. This is one thing that I hate about Discourse. It's like a movie is feminist if it passes the Bechdel test, kind of very utilitarian idea of representation, in the sense of the criticism is she doesn't do anything. The fact of the matter is her character is through how does she react to the circumstances that she's in. Her
Interesting.
Point is,
some of my favorite performances of this year have been reactive. So I mean, whatever that means,
the fact that she cannot act is part of why her, the whole whatever you call it, the emotional weight of it hits so much.
Have you seen Hemant, Janet Planet or Good One or no?
No, not yet.
Both of them have some great reactive performances by the children/teenagers. So yeah.
Again, I wanted to start for the discourse. I think for me particularly, but when I said the misinterpretation of the ending is the question becomes, what is Sean Baker saying about sex work? Is the essential discourse that is going around.
Yeah.
And as someone who has never seen another Baker film before, and so this is my first introduction to it, I feel like what I liked about it is I don't think there is a grand thesis about, is sex work negatively impactful on someone's mental health? Is it, because it's like, some people are saying it's being sort of patronizing towards her. Some people are saying it's, so the idea is essentially that, is he saying that sex work is inherently harmful? Therefore, she's having the breakdown that because she's been a sex worker, she can only see life transactionally. Or so for me, what works, how it works is there is no grand thesis. If you say a grand thesis, it's more about life under these work, scenarios under capitalism, essentially.
Yes.
It's a class critique in a large way, but it's essentially that. What I feel is like he's not saying this is a product of sex work. This is a product of sex work under these scenarios or under
whatever situation they are in right now, like in terms of the regime. Okay.
Yeah, so there is that empathy that really resonated with me. And a lot of the criticism is this is a cis, white, heterosexual man telling a story about marginalized people. And as someone who is, I don't like making identity politics arguments. We had this conversation when we were talking about queer cinema, you and I, Dhruv and I, that I think anybody can tell any story as long as they approach it with research and empathy. But oftentimes these identity points do play into bad representation, which is what we will get to when we talk tomorrow about my
Emilia Perez
favorite quote-unquote film.
Yes.
Which very much screams a cis white man wrote this story about
cis French white man. Yeah, I think French is another
Mexico,
thing you can add. Yes.
and all of that. But I never felt that with Baker, which is what really surprised me. And but that discourse becomes too essentialist is my problem. And that is where that sort of criticism of Anora is coming in.
Sure. I mean, again, whatever impression I have of Baker, whatever criticism I heard, I was like, this is just a pile of nonsense, isn't it? Like a pile of nonsense. Like I knew this sort of stuff happens, and I'm just like, it's so like, this is again from whatever I've seen of him. Like, if we are going to criticize Sean Baker, who does his research the way he does with these characters and sort of makes his worlds feel so authentic, I'm like, if he's going to get criticized for this, or his approach, I'm like, then we should just stick to whatever, like, then it's still like, then we are just doing the whole only the person who, like, the identity politics thing is then defining our filmmakers. Then it's like, which to me is like the same argument where, and this extends to the audience also, I think, because I remember on the umpteenth time I've tried to defend Ae Dil Hai Mushkil with Amartya. I think one of the times he brought up an argument saying that the reason why you don't care about these people is because their problems are very much a sort of rich people problem. Like, it's like it's that sort of, and I'm like, but see, for me, it's like if for example a rich person watches a quote unquote poor person's film and has the same point of view, can you then rebut that? Like, I'm like, if you're going to have that perspective towards that, then it's like, then it's each for their own, right? It's not like you're going to watch anything new or discover anything new from anything else. It's like you're just going to watch what you want to watch, which is boring. Sorry, I went on the screed, but yes.
I mean, this is why the whole film festival circuit and that whole there's a huge value that Sean Baker gives to that sort of viewing and presentation of cinema. Is that there is a person who has curated with their knowledge and experience, even based on journalistic integrity, that these are important things to watch, and this is what you need. This is a good education you can have. Why is it that we have NCERT syllabus books versus say CBSE and ICSE? Isn't truth the same for everyone? Why is it that we have so many boards? Why do we have so many? Why do we go to history class, right? Like, and that's like, I don't want to, the historian is talking about Harappa, but they're British. So like, well, the work was done by them. They did the archaeology. They spent the money and were in the toiling sun to dig all these old things out. Like, right? So, I mean, might as well just listen and at least get all the details you can
get different points of view from different people on a subject. Some of them will be offensive and reductive. For example, Chris will talk about tomorrow. Like we will have that. But then there is a difference between film. I think it's the extreme thing, right? It's like, and there can be a person who has been part of the world that Anora's character has been and has gotten a chance at making a film and can fluff it. Let's not even say that because a person has of that sort of identity has made it has to be good. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes it's not. It's the way of making a film. It's not about representation. So, I mean, it's their experience that they had. I mean, he's a cis white male dude who has gone through and talked to porn actresses, been in contact with consultants who are there from the industry. Like there was a talk that he did with again Lizzie Borden's conversation in the DJ podcast was that he talked to consultants about this archetype of suitcase pimps and different kind of pimps, and he was like, I personally just don't like them at all. It's just that the fact that there is this archetype, it's worth exploring, and because this archetype is detrimental to the workings of regular sex workers, and he's someone who is perpetuating this toxic behavior of like getting or pushing people into the porn industry based on manipulation. People don't. I mean, there's another thing that I really don't like about the whole rich person's life. I'm looking at. The thing is that you're looking at a person's life based on some sort of understanding that you have of the character. It's got nothing to do with, they are not trying to glamorize their life. It's or if you're trying to make glamour like Wolf of Wall Street or whatever. I don't know. This is too guy movie. I feel but the decadence that they have excess, right? It's all excess.
Excess, yeah. That is the commentary you're making on the excess, not the fact that rich is being good or like being in a gangster is good.
So it's the simple thing, which I remember. Sorry, I'm bringing up Scorsese so much, but I think the recent discourse on Anora and even Red Rocket reminds me of what Scorsese has had to face with. And I myself actually made a bit of a comment with Killers of the Flower Moon, in which I did feel there was a sort of, I think he tried to reckon with something, but I thought it sort of leaned too much into crushing that POV also. Like, to me, it was one of those things where his reckoning sort of was undermined by what he was representing and couldn't represent properly. We've discussed this whole twice on this podcast, so you can check those 2 episodes out.
I think the fundamental problem is the first principles. You cannot have someone's identity be the first principle on judging the merit of the film, which is what because in a sense, every film is an argument. It's an argument about something. And you have to be able to test the merits of the argument itself, you know.
Yeah.
And you look at what is it doing. Is Sean Baker, ask the questions, is Sean Baker's cinema making it that there are less sex workers' voices listened to in the industry? I don't think so. I think he's creating room for more of these stories. Is he taking over the place of someone who, of a sex worker who could have spoken? I don't think so, because these are his privilege gives him the room to open these stories. And that's a space that would always have been there for him. There are different spaces for these voices to be heard in. So I genuinely dislike when that is your first principle. And you have to talk about what is he doing. Like with, for example, even in Scorsese's case, while there are issues, I do believe there is a level of voice he was able to give to the community that he's talking about, which is still valuable to talk about.
And he is wanting to, I think, reckon with his representation of those voices too. I think there is an attempt at that. Do I agree that it's successful or not? There's a different scenario, but like, you know, he is doing something interesting with his status on that subject is my point. And I think I remember always the Irishman criticism, which I hated, where it was like, you know, the woman character is totally like, you know, Anna Paquin never speaks a word. I'm like, speaking doesn't mean that she'll have a character. Look can define her character. Her character is literally the voice of reason in that film, and she features very judicially because of that. You know,
you like the whole adaptation of Dune, dude. Like Zendaya's character gets nothing to say in the.
It's books, all her basically countering whatever Chalamet is becoming, right, in part 2.
Yeah, and it's just reaction. She does just reaction, much with just reaction shots mostly. Yeah. And it is a sense of agency there also. It's just that you're telling a whole story and they're part of that story. If you want to be offended about a thing because it's kind of cherry picking, I feel. Where you don't wanna have a very certain kind of, I don't know, unilateral view of the fact that things have to supposed to be a certain way. There is a democratization of being opinionated that has happened, and that has led to this unhealthy approach of like blanket saying that, oh, this person is not supposed to make that kind of movie. Whatever they're saying is actually not really helping anyone. But if you now look at the filmography of this person, Sean Baker, his whole life he's been doing this. Like since 2005, you can see all of the movies that he does, all of them are representing the people and their problems and talking about the problems in those movies. In Takeout, he's talking about how immigrants are losing the chance to get asylum privileges because they talk about that. How do you come in here? I came in like last 2 months ago on asylum. Oh, are you going to be undocumented? Like, they're all undocumented, but they're human beings. So that's how they're treated. It's not that, oh, undocumented immigrants are the bad thing and everything. That's a big topic now. And there is no empathy given to them as such, or a voice given to them.
No, but outside of the democratization as well, I think there is a sort of, like I said with the Bechdel, there's a pseudo-intellectualization of film discourse, whatever you want to call it.
You are the one on the site, so you should know more.
I'm also in the real life spaces where these discussions happen, and that happens there as well, which is quite unfortunate. But it's this, oh, male gaze bad, female gaze good, which is just, if a man shoots, it is male gaze, and if a female shoots, it is female gaze.
I mean, have you seen Strange Days by Catherine Bigelow? Like, that's literally male gaze.
Catherine Bigelow is
POV.
Catherine Bigelow is an entire filmmaker who like defies that entire norm in that sense. But you know, the opening.
I mean, even Coralie Fargett, right, recently with Substance, if you want to say,
with Substance, So it's that, he is showing sex workers being in a way that you can consider it, say, titillating. Therefore, he's applying the male gaze. Therefore, he's objectifying these sex workers. Therefore, it is bad. It is like just mental gymnastics to prove that the film is bad. Actually, it seems like I don't want to discredit them because a lot of the people making these criticisms are people I'm friends with. So like, I also don't want to
alienate them, Chris, so that they also don't listen to this podcast.
You can make more.
Who will not listen to this podcast?
I empathize with where they're coming from because in progressive spaces, there's become this knee-jerk thing of, because we are so used to terrible representation, cue Emilia Perez hate, we essentially want every possible box ticked. That the intimacy coordinators became a huge discourse on its own, where Sean Baker was being called a sleaze for even thinking of not having an intimacy coordinator on set. So there is this thing that it's like only if, and again, like you said, people who are of an identity can make terrible, harmful things about the people who belong to their same identity. It's not a
example here. I'm just trying to think.
Example, I mean, the one that we brought up was the fact that Ek Ladki Ko Dekha To Aisa Laga was written by a queer woman, and that is, in my opinion, not very good representation. There's plenty, but the point is that we really need, you need to address a film as an argument, as a film on its own. I mean, in a sense, I am quite happy that I was able to approach Anora before having seen any of Sean Baker's other work, because I'm able to get a look into this is a man who's developed his ethos. He's gotten his subject matter. He is in a lot of people call this his like, you know, the magnum opus or whatever term you want to use it. The sort of
the commercial film, no? Or no?
I won't call this a magnum opus as such, but this is a definite return to form, return to his roots.
Yeah. Or at least a culmination of all these ideas.
Form, not return to his roots, I would say. He's always in form, that
he's been ruminating upon for so many years. But the point is just that, you know, so it's someone who knows. So I'm coming in knowing that this guy has been talking about this for so long. So I'm able to see him at the top. You know, when he's got all the resources, he's got a bigger budget. What is he able to do with it? And exactly. I saw that empathy, and I see so many people just not even ready to watch it from a perspective of there is a possibility that this film could be empathetic. It is pre-decided that this, because Sean Baker is making it, because it is like this, it is going to be this way. And that just annoys the living hell out of me.
I mean, it's like, what if Roman Polanski made a movie about pedophiles? It's like if you're trying to say that, is that you're assuming that person is like, or like is going.
He has already made
like
that.
Woody Allen did a Game of Thrones episode. What do you want? Like, why do you think
you're going in very troubling waters?
This is your bite. This is
I think I'd stick to Martin Scorsese. I think that's a safer space.
Okay, Scorsese made a story about asthma patients. I don't know, like if you don't want that person to always be associated with a certain view of him. It's like you're accepting your myth. Like if he has a myth, then he's that he's a sleazy person who's only gonna look at sleazy actors and that
limitation of the auteur theory also. It's the whole key, good defined style, defined narrative, this honestly growth bhi hota hai aadmi mein. Yeah, development bhi hota hai dono. It's like both. Aadmi mein bhi
Coppola, we just spoke about Megalopolis. Like devolving is like when you believe your myth way too much. He is basically Paul Atreides in real life. The weird thing that I felt...
Listen, Al Gaib. Is that the...
He's what deep. I felt like he had a lot of... I mean, it's a great rebel. Like Coppola, and Dune Part 2 is definitely Godfather Part 2, really. There is something to be said about how people who make movies about the fringe, if they look at big budget directors have also tackled these issues, but it doesn't come up the same way.
I think the way what people would be more receptive towards, and I think this might also, it's a distinguishing between the substance and something like A Different Man also. The meta-ness. It's this whole idea that when you the self-implication thing is a great trick to use for to let the critics be on your side. It's like, oh, look, I'm self-implicating myself also in a film also. And that basically means that I'm making a film about the fringe, but I also know that I'm not part of the fringe. So let me just, slightly distance myself and all that. And I'm like, good, but there is a distancing that happens. And then the issue with these films sometimes, and this Tarantino can be blamed for it also. It's like the whole postmodern thing, right? Where you do postmodernism, and which basically means you are excused of then doing the thing you're critiquing. So it's like the whole key.
Is Django really a blaxploitation film,
or is it racist also? Like, exactly. It sort of coasts on that level. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting how sort of certain techniques, actually cinematic techniques, sort of gain more credibility in critical circles, at least when it comes to sort of topics about exploring sort of people on the fringe, people who you don't see as part of belonging to them. Like, I feel it's interesting. Like, I do think that technique works sometimes. I don't know. I like a good sincere drama that doesn't sort of call attention to its own making. And I know Cris has
it also becomes sort of the self-deprecating, that 500 disclaimers ki, I am not part of this community, I'm not speaking on behalf of them, I'm not this. I'm like, you have a bloody story, just tell it.
To me, the best balancing act, I think, is a sorry, again bringing her up, Claire Denis sort of kind of goes for me. Like, it's the she's representing one point of view, but then she also has like moments in the middle that sort of kind of give you a whiplash of, this is the limited point of view, sort of like that, to me at least.
Are you talking about Bor Havel?
No. We've talked about that a plenty, but most of her films, I think, sort of.
I think, you can see a lot of this sort of filmmaking from Yorgos Lanthimos also, is that he tends to be very, you can go back to how Sex is shown, is that like he kind of understands that there is a use for it, and that human beings act a certain way in this environment or in this situation, and he tries to play more and more based on how can I get this the situation or the power dynamics to be as messed up as possible, so that there's not an imbalance, but there is a sort of seesaw that happens with power dynamics. And I think
actually Kinds of Kindness ka second story fits in really well here, if anyone's not seen it.
For sure.
Really, really uncomfortable sort of husband-wife power struggle story in that. I think it's memorable.
And it's that complicatedness. Like, he doesn't have to be person who's married and having all these problems. Like, I can't say, it looks like Nolan had an affair, that's the reason why Oppenheimer has an affair. It can't be that. So what he can do,
he created the atom bomb also, right?
He created the atom bomb, that's why.
Usne atom bomb nahi banaya, how did he make that?
His atom bomb is like the rabid fandom he's created. I think that is the atom bomb more than anything else.
Yeah, I am surprised we managed to get through this conversation without me mentioning Foucault and Spivak, because I have been doing that philosophy brain thing. But I restrained myself.
Are you Antoine Foucault?
No, not Antoine Foucault.
I was like,
this is a joke for people who know their philosophy and American cinema both. I think, yeah. Genre American cinema. So Equalizer, has he made Equalizer? Foucault?
He made Training Day. I know that.
Okay. And then, so he's probably made something with Denzel again.
He did do Equalizer. Yeah, he did all three Equalizers. Oh my God. Yeah. Why?
Money, Hemant. Money.
I forgot about that part.
But money, something that Spivak and whoever Cris mentioned don't get, probably.
Foucault. Spivak is still alive. Foucault is very dead.
Okay, but they still don't get it. It's philosophers, right? Philosophers don't get money. Isn't that the golden rule? In any case, yeah. Okay.
We are pedaishi unemployable, as we say.
Yeah.
You thought someone's going to pay you to talk. All right.
Even we are not paying you to talk. Then who will pay you? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Last final thoughts on Anora,
I think
the Discourse, and
something I wanted to say as a closing comment on Baker and Anora, and just maybe a little bit of like the view of fringe cinema, is that this sort of cinema exists and it's been around for a long time. It's just that not a lot of directors who have been given the voice of the keys to the door have been given enough opportunity to tell the full story. And Sean Baker is probably one of the few ones who is that educated in film form that he can play those tricks and actually show you that sort of, you feel like you're in safe hands, knowing that the movie is going to go on. It's not going to suddenly turn into like a 1 hour long speech on life. Like we are not talking about Rublev or something. Like we're not talking about Russian cinema here. Like
wow, that is some dig, Hemant.
I don't think.
I think Aryan would have had a seizure if you said this. Luckily, he's not here. I did not expect this to come, but sure. Tarkovsky fans are triggered, I suppose.
I mean, I don't think there's any problem with Tarkovsky because he's more image than dialogue. Yeah. And I feel like dialogue or having a dialogue about problems in these sort of fringe movies is something that is promoted, that you want to happen. You want that the characters keep talking about they don't have health insurance. Why isn't there health insurance for these people?
I think, do you think documentaries sort of, because one of my favorite things this year is The Homie by Mati Diop. And that has a wonderful balance between slightly experimental filmmaking and then like a political debate that feels like genuinely, I don't remember the last time I've been that enthralled by a debate in a film. I was like shocked. I was like, how did you make this sound remotely engaging and interesting? So, I guess documentary allows topics which are sort of talking about, people on the fringes to be expressed openly, as opposed to, what you're saying. You don't need a strong dramatic framework for it. So I suppose
I feel that's the beauty of cinema. I love watching movies where like I'm gonna watch Brutalist soon. Like I wanted to watch it.
The Brady Corbett film, 215-minute.
Yeah,
that's a magnum opus, right?
That is definitely a magnum opus. But it is something of like a real story. Feels real, but it's not real, and it kind of tells you. I like the stories which are kind of not real, but they show kind of real characters in a situation which is real for the world.
Like based on a true story.
Kind of based on a true story by Fargo. Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of it. I mean they got it. I love Coen brothers because of how cheeky they are with this stuff.
That episode is overdue, but yes, someday it will happen very soon. Yes.
Man, Miller's Crossing, bro. Like that's
I mean, I can gush about their work throughout, but anyway.
I will thrash a little bit of No Country for Old Men though, because after I read the book later on, I actually read the book and I felt like
insulting to me, but okay. Later.
I love it's the great. I feel like that movie maybe it shouldn't have won Best Picture compared to Devil Be Blood. But these sort of movies, if you compare this Sean Baker with someone like someone like a
Rajkumar Hirani. Sorry, I was about to say
Rajkumar Hirani. You want to compare it?
Dunky, no, like something like that. I feel like if you want to make something, this is a social message film. I feel, but in this you're allowed to be more murky, like in a Sean Baker film. Right?
I feel like he's not fetishist.
But वही तो complaint है, I think a little bit for
a lot of the complaint is fetish. I think for me. My takeaway from Anora is very much that you have to be as empathetic to the film itself as you are to the characters as you're getting into it, because I think the film does a lot of things right, especially for someone who extensively studies this area. I think there is a sense, like you said, be it his journalistic, integrity or just the empathy that he brings to the film. But there are important stories told, or at least important perspectives told here that I don't think deserve to be dismissed for the work that is put into them, for the actors who are in, for everybody as a creative output that should be dismissed on the basis of Sean Baker's personal identity. And I think it's extremely reductive of the possibilities of art, because oftentimes marginalized people don't have the room. Nobody wants to listen to marginalized people. Again, I'm trying not to evoke Spivak, but you need oftentimes the work of those in positions of privilege is to allow room for those who are marginalized to speak. And so it's just that the discourse makes me genuinely sad, because it's the death of media literacy, which is the rant we do like
Every
twice an episode at this point.
Yeah.
It feels really sad, but in a way, I'm also really happy that Anora is doing so well, and it goes from, Sean Baker goes from the film festival circuit to now, so many awards and the Oscar run and all, or the sort of this thing. So because I feel like this is an extremely accessible film. I think that is what I appreciate about it the most. I don't think you need it's the from its aesthetic sensibility, formal sensibility, it's a film that even if you're a more casual cinema enjoyer, you can definitely
recommend it to people, right? You can recommend it to people.
Yeah, you can recommend it to basically if as long as you're comfortable seeing sex on screen, you can essentially watch it.
A lot of steaming and very high tension situations. Yes,
But I mean, I don't even have to give like that horrible trigger warning for the end of disclaimer. Like that is like my favorite thing, because like that last episode annoyed the living hell out of me. But let's not go there. But
all this is coming. Don't worry. In detail, all this is gonna come. This is all gonna be an outpouring because we've held it in so long.
Join in.
Yes, please join. Please join.
Please. I
like disclaimer more than us, at least, I think.
I did, it was just because I was just trying to be nice to it, really. I was being way too nice to it, I think.
I have no such emotions towards the disclaimer. But essentially that because it's so accessible, these stories have more room to be heard. It reaches out to more people, and it doesn't moralize. It allows you the room to think as well. So for me, that is what I think. Out of all the discourse, I was able to build a new appreciation for Anora just for what Baker is able to do with it. So that was my sort of takeaway from the whole thing.
Perfect. I think that sort of puts a nice cap
on it.
Bow, whatever. Is there any other object of thing in?
Since we really are unhappy with media literacy, I want people to really watch documentaries about this stuff, and watch and read articles about sex work and how capitalism has really kind of ruined any sort of worker's life, honestly.
Sure.
Because I mean, again, I'm going to go back to Red Rocket. There's a lot of background shots of people who have oil rigs, and there are a lot of factories that they live next to. It's in Texas.
The background again. There's the background foreground thing again is happening.
I mean, here you have a big long speech by Toros about this whole generation. They don't care about anyone, and the fact that we are looking at him just as cringily as the characters are looking at him in the diner was something that I found really funny. But this is. There's something that everyone should take from this, is that if you actually go to the credits of this movie, watch the credits and read the things that are special thanks. The people who are being thanked are all people who are saying doing the good work of actually putting the messages and the stories of the people who are in this industry out. It's good to actually go into that a little bit. Reading articles about them and their story is actually harrowing enough to make you empathize with them. I think this is more of lightweight. I feel like Sean Baker is trying to soft entry you into the horribleness of the world.
Sure.
And I think that's something
there are lots. If you want hardcore entries, whatever that means for Hemant, it means something else in terms of.
I feel hardcore entries when you really. I mean, here in this movie, you kind of feel hollow, but you still feel a little bit like,
I think the subject matter you're talking about in terms of the work, work environments and sort of that particular thing being exploitative. There are films which sort of really dig their hands deep into whatever muck there is. There's this film called Holiday. I don't know what. Again, that's a very controversial film because it features like this uncut, almost like a sexual, like it's the irreversible almost thing where it's like.
Oh my god! Okay,
yeah. Where it's like.
Because if you search for it, you will get the comedy with Cameron Diaz, Jude Law, Kate Winslet, and Jack Black.
The Holiday, not the Holiday.
Not Nancy Meyers movie.
No, not Nancy Meyers Holiday. Sorry, The Holiday. This is Holiday. Some other language movie also, I forgot. But anyways. But a lot of these movies are there which sort of, if you want like the dirty end of it, I guess, whatever you want to say, the dirty picture also. No, never mind. Not the dirty picture. Not the dirty picture. That is for different
audience
purposes and audiences, I suppose. It's for entertainment, right? Cue the clip, of course. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to this episode, whoever has stuck around. And thank you, Hemant and Cris, for providing full, great thoughts on firstly Baker's filmography from Hemant, and then a nice extended deep dive into sort of Sean Baker's Anora, which I shall hopefully forget whatever these guys said in the next 2 months and then watch the film basically as a new film. That's how we go about it. Anyways, I don't think there's much you guys have spoiled. Whatever you've made, whatever you've said
we didn't do anything. We didn't go past it.
Whatever you've said has made me think that I would really like this movie in any case. So thank you for that. Thank you for putting my hopes high up. So if I hate it, I will slam you guys, of course, in the next podcast episode. Basically, that's gonna happen, regardless for some movie or the other, right? I'm gonna get slammed also tomorrow, so I'm have to find a scapegoat somewhere.
We are taking Dhruv to town.
Yeah,
I mean, me to Agra.
Okay, I honestly don't understand what you found in the last episode to be good. I also think first 2 episodes maybe we're like, okay, yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was
no, not disclaimer. Agra.
Not disclaimer. Agra.
Okay. Oh my God, really?
Again, it's the freeze point essentially, right, of this episode. Oh my God, really?
Put a meme sound at the end.
This is where we announced that Dhruv actually got dementia by a while back.
No, we've established what's the log line I have? Edgy nihilist who likes pornography. Yeah, that's my कवर पे जो जाएगा टाइप, बट मैं कवर पे नहीं जाएगा. Yes, and is fortunately not transphobic because he doesn't like Emilia Perez. So it's we are doing our own sort of whatever our movie choices are dictates what our identity is. We are doing that
Like
version.
Dungeons and Dragons ka characters
Exactly. But I do like edgy nihilist who likes pornography. I think that's quite a nice
We need to make
character
like a
trait.
quick UID alignment chart of like chaotic evil.
Oh yeah, the brand compass.
So yes, I will. Yeah, so I mean there's lots of episodes coming. Actually, we have like episodes lined up now, I think, for the foreseeable month, I think. And I'm guessing, depending on whoever's free and however things pan out, maybe we do the same thing as we did last year, where we discuss all the nominees in different categories and different ways. I don't know if it'll be on live stream or episode. We've been told not to live stream by Sanjeet, so I'm listening to him. Anyways, thank you so much.
Because he does not like the fact that there's just so much conversation and there's no structure at all.
that
And
gave
there's
me
one
a shock.
person in the chat.
Yeah.
There is always one person.
Two people. Now one person won't be there because he's with us. So it's that's वही हम लोग देवुलीना के साथ भी करेंगे है ना. Second person also, she'll join quit. So basically we'll just listen to each other. यही बच गया है करने के लिए हमारे.
Now the commentary on echo chambers, man. Podcast
I
are
know.
commentary on echo chambers.
Exactly. Anyways, thank you for listening to this episode. You can follow Cris at PRDS Cris. Is that correct? On Instagram and also on Twitter. So to say X, sorry. And you can follow Queen is Dead at actually screw this, like all this is there in the description. I'm
This
not
is
going to
there and there's hyperlinks. We don't have to
I think Cris ka was main because he's now coming regularly, so I'll keep on reminding people about his account for about 5 more episodes, and then that will also go.
I think everyone should also have links of what they write about, because I feel all of you guys are writers and you guys don't just show enough of your writing. I feel all of you guys are great writers who I feel like oh wow, there's so much good stuff that you guys have on your websites which is just stuck there, which we don't talk about.
छुपा के रखा है सर ताकि लोग जूते ना मारे. और anyways, so yes, I think that's the reason for doing it. And anyways, you can read all this stuff. We will link it if you want. हमारे profiles पे जाओ, सब linked है वहाँ पे, to be very honest. But anyways, your choice. As it should be for everyone. So yes, thank you so much for listening, and khatam.